Okay, so I want to spend the last 20 minutes on talking a little bit about the secular studies issue. And again, when this is over, if you'd like to, I have a number about 25. I hope it's enough for whoever wants it. Okay. In order to understand this, we have to have a little bit history, a little bit American history. In the 1800s, a long time ago, there was a gentleman by the name of Blaine, B-L-A-I-N-E. I think he ran for president even, he lost. He was a very important person, very influential. He tried to make an amendment that monies belonging to, coming from the taxes and so on, cannot be used for religion. It fell through. But many states picked up on it. And in New York State, there was a person by the name of, I don't know if I'm pronouncing the name right, Chorat. He was the head of he was the president of the New York Constitutional Convention. I'm not quite sure what that is. He was the president of that. At that time, there was a big machlekes between many of the people in the government and the Catholics. The Catholics at that time were being funded federal monies for the education they provided and also for their religious activities. They were getting money from the government. And this guy and many people were anti-Catholic, so they fought it, and they came to a maskana in 1894. In 1894, they came to a maskana that they made a compromise, that they would get, they would not be funded for their religious activities, but they would be funded for their educational activities. And eventually that was also taken away. But at that time, that same time, they also made, this was all anti-Catholic, it was not l'shem education. And they also made a rule that that the Catholic schools have to have substantial equivalency. Those are the key words. Substantial equivalency. Now what they teach in their school has to be equivalent to what all the other children get in the public schools. Substantial equivalency. It was meant to hurt the Catholics. That was the clear purpose of it. And Yidden were not involved at the time. There were in 1894, there were a few Yidden in America, but there was no Yeshivas, no Chinuch, there was nothing to worry about in terms of well, what happened after that, was in the end of, after 1894, or even a little before, and in the early 1900s, the big influx of Yidden started to come from Russia and from Germany. They came before, even all the pogroms in Russia. Many Yidden came. I mean, till like 1935, yeah, probably a couple million Yidden came. And at the same time, in 1894, was also the Dreyfus story in France, for those who know the story. And that created a lot of anti-Semitism. So by the time, Yidden were established here in America, closer to World War II already, there were already a lot of Yidden, became Yirbu, and there were already yeshivas and schools. So now all these substantial equivalency requirements started now to apply to yeshivas. But nobody really cared. Whatever they did in yeshivas, nobody cared. The law was that nobody had to check on the yeshivas. As long as nobody complained, everything was good, it was good. If there's a complaint about a certain school, certain yeshiva, that they're not teaching a substantially equivalent material, so then the Board of Education has to look into this and see if it's true and correct it. That's how it was all the years until recently. Now there are two groups who are in charge here. In the state of New York, there's it's called the State Education Department. State Education Department. And there's a commissioner, her name was the one who just resigned, Commissioner Elia. She resigned on Yud Beis Tammuz, and I'm sure it's the Lebracha. And there's a Board of Regents. The Board of Regents are people that are not elected. They're chosen, they're appointed. They're people who have educational credentials from different parts of the city. And they're chosen by, I guess, the different political leaders. And they're the Board of Regents. And they're in charge of this commissioner. They're on top of her. And the State Education Commission, called the SED, has representatives in all of New York State. In New York City, their representative is the New York City DOE, Department of Education. So the New York City Department of Education is responsible to the state. It's not like the mayor of New York City or the city council of New York City is not achrei to the state. The state can't tell them what to do. The state gives some monies or whatever, but the state can't tell them what to do. Education is different. New York City Board of Education is responsible to the state education department and to the Board of Regents. And in addition, the city has, there are school boards, and a number of them divided all over the city, and there's this chairman of each school board who's responsible, kaviyachol, for his area. So again, until now, nobody was doing anything. I'll tell you a very interesting story that happened with Rabbi Chol Teitelbaum, the Miyasir of Oholei Torah. I'm not sure in which year, but in the very early years of the business of Oholei Torah. It was founded in Teves of Tafshin Tez Zayin. This happened maybe a year or two later, I'm not sure exactly. I never could find out the exact year. The Michal told the Rebbe that there was an inspector who was scheduled to come the next day to see. There was, a state inspector was coming to check if they're doing their substantial equivalency. They mostly looked at also at the attendance records and if we did it properly and other such things. So the Rebbe told Rabbi Michal, Zogem, wer hat ihm gegeben Reshus zu kommen her? Who gave him permission to come here? So Michal is a chassid. The next morning when the guy comes, the guy shows up, Michal goes outside and starts shouting at him in his broken English, who told you to come here? The guy got so scared he ran away and he never came back. There's a Meister Shahoyer. Wer hat ihm gegeben Reshus zu kommen da? But that's the Rebbe said it, so that worked. I believe also that that's the reason when the Michal named Yeshiva Oholei Torah, he didn't call it like every other yeshiva, Yeshiva's Oholei Torah. He called it Meisat Chinuch. Meisat Chinuch sounds like an institution, usually is for, we're an institution, but why did it choose such a name? In English, it's educational institute. Institutes are, why the Rebbe chose that? Because I believe, and maybe the Rebbe said it, but I'm not sure, I never heard a clear story, but I believe the Rebbe did not want the name of Oholei Torah to be listed where they list in the telephone book. All the yeshivas, if you look in the telephone book, they were only telephone books, but it used to be all the yeshivas, so Oholei Torah wouldn't be there, because it's not a yeshiva. It's a Meisat Chinuch. So there's less of a chance that they're going to come in inspect and see what's going on. Which Agav, the Michal at one point asked the Rebbe, Oholei Torah is a very powerful name. Michal wanted to call Yeshiva, I think of Friedrich Rebbe's name, after they made the Hershel all the years of Yitzchak and Eretz Yisrael. And then later on, when the Rebbe gave permission for one, I think in Kfar Chabad, for the shul to be based in Menachem, I think he wanted to name Yeshiva or Menachem. And he asked the Rebbe, I don't remember exactly in which case, which time, because these stories are all a little bit nebulous. Then we got very clear. And the Rebbe told him not to, but es wird kommen die Zeit, zu weiten dem Namen. So that's why today we feel after Gimel Tammuz, the Zeit is gekommen. That's what the Rebbe meant. Es wird kommen die Zeit. Don't change the name now. Wait until the time comes. But anyhow, getting back to this. So there's this organization called Yafed, run by this guy by the name of Naftali Moster. Moster. Moser is a better name for him.
That's a Moser also.
Moser, yeah. He is he grew up as a Chassidish Bacher, as a Belzer Bacher, in Belzer Yeshiva. His family is Belzer Chassidim. Unfortunately, they don't have that much nachas from him. He, as far as we know, is not frum. He's angry that he didn't find the kind of job that he thinks he should have had, or he didn't get the kind of couldn't get into the university that he wanted. He did eventually, because I think he's a lawyer, but he had a hard time. He says that he grew up, he didn't know what a molecule was. So what kind of education did he get? So for a number of years now, so he has an organization called Yafed, it's Young Adults for something, right? And he does not stop putting pressure on the city and on the state and on the courts to do something about the fact that yeshivas are not providing substantial equivalent education. And there's the media and the press, and they get all excited when he comes out with a statement or whatever. So there's pressure on the mayor, pressure on the Department of Education of New York City, pressure on the state, pressure on all the people. It is a terrible gezerah. And people say, well, in America, the Constitution gives us the right to religious liberty. We don't have to worry about, nobody can force me to do anything. But it's not so. It isn't so. Because the Constitution offers protection for people, children as well, if there's neglect. If, for example, if a parent chas v'shalom neglects their child, they don't give them food, they don't give them clothing, so they take the child away. It's my right, it's my child. No, it's not. It's not your right, it's not your child. You have to take care of him. If you don't take care of him, you take him away. Al derech zeh, there's something called educational neglect. If you don't provide your child with any education, so he's not going to be able to grow up and be successful in society, the Constitution protects that child. And there was and you can't claim it's my religion. So my religion is not to give my child food. You can't do that. Certain things you can't do. And the ones who had who tested this were the Amish. Mahabdil, in Pennsylvania, these people, religious people, that they feel that the Olam, the world, is a bad hashpah on their way of life. So they only provide education up to the 8th grade, elementary school. When it comes to high school, the children go to work in the fields. So this was taken to court. A famous case called Yoder against the state, I forgot which state. And the court allowed it. Court allowed it. That's a little bit of our hope. Court allowed it. The court said that, look, first of all, they already went to the 8th grade. They have already basic knowledge they need to know to get around in the world. High school, and because they live such an insulated community, and they stick on their own, and they don't go to doctors, and they don't do anything. So it's understood. It's taka steer to their way of life. It's not something that from a Yidden can say. We're all over the world. We're out there. We can't say that we want to be insulated. We want to live in our own little shell. So our approach is a different one, and that is that we are saying, first of all, we had a visit this year in Kislev time from the Department of Education of New York City, together with the local Board of Education, the local school board it's called. And they were actually very, very impressed.
Let them in?
Yes.
The hole wasn't there to keep him out.
I did do a little bit of Michal's of that. I told them, I didn't do it the way Michal did it, I didn't shout at them, but I did tell them that it's inappropriate for them to come to check. I did say, I explained it to them why I thought it was inappropriate. But anyhow, they even visited a number of classrooms and were very, very impressed. Of course, it was a little bit set up what the classroom happened to be learning on that day when they came. You might just be learning about Meiser, how you give a tenth, and Trumas Meiser is a tenth of a tenth. And Punkt Bashgacha Pratis, the teacher was learning that, the Melamed was learning that when they were there, or other such things that were, But they were impressed because we're telling them two things. Number one is that all the skills basically that a child needs to grow up is getting through the Limud Kodesh. And that's the emes. Because in Kodesh they're learning about the history of the world, and they learn about the geography of the world, what's in Eretz Yisrael in the 9 days in the Beis HaMikdash right now, Chabad history, they're learning about Russia and about, they learn measurements, numbers, tzitzis. They have to know how much it is in the gematria, how you get the gematria of Tayyag, and there's so many rashis that are based on Cheshbon and even Chumash, even basic things like the Shvatim. There were 12 Shvatim, and Leah said Hapam Oides Hashem when she had 4. When she had 4, because there are 4 Imohos, so her share is 3, right? And she already had 4. It's more than her share. So this is fractions, isn't it? They know that 4 is more than 3 is a quarter. She deserves a quarter. It's a quarter of 12 is 3, and she has already 4. So it's Hapamaydis Hashem. And Al Derazan in throughout all of them with the Kodesh, they really get everything. Plus, I show them that our Talmidim are not on the unemployment lines of New York City. Our Talmidim, probably half of the Shluchim, that big picture they take, of 4,000 people there in front of 770, probably half of them are only Torah Talmidim. So our Talmidim are Matzliach. They go out, they're successful, many are in business, many are professionals. Our Talmidim are more often than not successful people. I did a survey of Talmidim who were in the 8th grade from the year 1997, for them I'm using Goyish years, 1997 to 2001, 5 years. Those boys are today between 30 and 35 years old. So they're established in life already. And I took a survey. I also wanted to know, are they frum? Are they chassidish? Do they have a beard? That part, obviously, I'm not showing them. But the part for them is, where do they live? Are they a shliach? Are they working in chinuch or in GEM or in JLI or things like that? Or are they in business? What are they doing? Do they have a family? Are they married? and it's really, Baruch Hashem, it's nice. I showed them a picture that was on the night before Gimel Tammuz of this year. There was in the shul, in Nosson Shul, Chaim Yisrael Wilhelm is the Rav. So his class, his friends, he's more than 30 years old. His class gathered for a reunion in his shul. The life behind that idea was a Gemara by the name of Nuchi Shapiro in Los Angeles. So you had over there, you had probably approximately 70 out of 90 Talmidim. And these are people in their 30s already. It's beautiful. If you look at that picture, you have so much nachas to see Yungelite, Chassidish Yungelite, by and large. Okay, there was somebody in the picture who wasn't from as well. But it's really beautiful. None of the people were in prison. They all were employed. They all were matzliach. Some were wealthy, some were not. And that's